I'm reminding you that we are streaming live on talkjamaicaradio.com. My name is Ralston Chamberlain. My co-host this afternoon is Ricardo Brooks. Listeners, attorney at law Donna Parchment-Brown was on Monday sworn in as the island's fourth political ombudsman. Parchment-Brown, who will serve for 7 years, was also the Custos Rotolorum for the parish of St. Andrew for 9 months. She's a dispute resolution specialist who was called to the bar more than 33 years ago and has served in both the private and public sectors. As political ombudsman, Parchment Brown will function as a mediator and facilitator to ensure the proper conduct of the political parties in accordance with the established codes. Jamaica's first ombudsman was resident magistrate Errington Green, who was appointed in 1977, and the second was Justice Sewell Carr, appointed in 1988. The third was Bishop Harold Blair, who was appointed in 2002 and later resigned in 2013. Listeners, we are now joined in Talk Vault by Jamaica's first female political ombudsman, Donna Parchment-Brown. Good afternoon, Miss Parchment-Brown, and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here with your audience.
And we are
with you.
delighted to have you. But let me ask you, Miss Parchment-Brown, what does this appointment mean to you?
This is the kind of question that you can get very, very soppy and weepy on, or you can be more forthright. I'll choose the latter. I believe that every Jamaican has a responsibility to contribute to the welfare of this country. And the opportunity to serve in the field of politics is a very special opportunity. And when you're able to serve in the political arena without being partisan, then it's an extra special privilege and responsibility. And so I embrace wholeheartedly the idea of being part of reinforcing and building up Jamaica's democracy.
Mm-hmm. And you come to this office, Miss Parchment-Brown, at a time when the political fever is high. Persons are anticipating an election soon. Both parties are ramping up their support. How prepared are you to address challenges that will come up?
Clearly, I'm going to have to learn on the job to a great extent because I'm new, 1 week in, as you said. But there is an infrastructure that is well established. It is true that because there's not been an ombudsman for the last 2 years, persons may well have lost that sharp ear for what is unacceptable. And therefore, one of the things we hope the ombudsman being back on board and knowing that there is a political code of conduct, that it will cause all the speakers and actors to refocus their minds. Certainly, I intend to working with the custodians of each of the parishes, organize for every single candidate to have the opportunity to be advised of and to have a copy of the code of conduct and sign declaring their support for the political code of conduct.
Mm-hmm. And for our listeners who do not know Miss Parchment-Brown, can you just give us an idea of what are the responsibilities of a political ombudsman?
The political ombudsman is responsible for facilitating and ensuring peace between political parties, political actors, and within the public domain for the citizens in general. So we receive complaints, if there are complaints about conduct that persons think would be in breach of the code of conduct, or such conduct which they think is political that may have caused them harm or they anticipate harm, then they're entitled to make complaints on those. And I'm also entitled to observe situations that may go to break down the peace or cause harm or cause disorder, and to take such actions as are necessary. Being supported by police liaison officers in every parish who will assist me with investigations and with reports.
Mm-hmm. Mrs. Parchment-Brown, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi. Let me ask you this question because there's been a lot of talk about whether or not we should even have the Office of Political Ombudsman. From where you see it, what would be your response to those who say that?
It's in a democracy. Fortunately, we're able to look at things and different views may contend. Certainly, an office which is a public office on the public purse must always be able to demonstrate that there is some good sense by having that. So for those who are concerned, I think there are a few people who are concerned about whether we need to have somebody in this office or not. I say to them, I ask for your critical eye. Mm-hmm. I ask for you to listen and look and see whether there are ways in which the office can improve the political climate, which would mean that if you're at work, you could chat about your political party freely with somebody else about their political party and not worry that it may have any consequence for you. That you may express your political view at church or in a service club or in your family or in a setting and not worry that there may be a negative consequence that comes depending on who that is shared with. And also to have confidence that the ombudsman would be a voice that would stand and say, as Jamaicans, we don't stand for this. And whether mediate or arbitrate the issue so that people can feel that something has been done about the thing that concerns them.
Mm-hmm. And, you come to the role as a mediator, you have expert knowledge in that area. And you've been observing, I'm sure, the political hustlings and the back and forth. And a lot of people say we shouldn't be concerned, We shouldn't be concerned because this is part of the course.
Yes.
When you go into a situation where people think that, when somebody says something on a platform, we ought to leave it alone. How will you approach that kind of situation where some Jamaicans believe that that's just part of the course, but in the office you hold that we have to sometimes rein some of that in? How will you approach those situations?
Well, I'm very respectful generally, and I like to listen more than I like to talk. And I certainly would provide opportunities to help those who are speaking think about the unintended consequences of some of what they say. Unfortunately, sometimes we make statements that hurt or destroy other people and also hurt us. I think a lot of times people don't pay attention to the unexpected interpretation of their deeds and actions. And I think I'm able to help people see that more and also help them think about what their objectives are. If your objective is to win an election, that's an absolutely acceptable and proper objective within the context of Jamaica. But if your objective is to destroy fellow Jamaicans, cause people to go into acts of violence, hurt families who have done no harm, cause disenchantment from the political process where young people and old people and the people of all ages are uncertain about whether they need to engage. This is about the way in which we practice politics. And it is difficult for our messages to be heard if the only thing that is being heard is the negative message about the other. If all we get are negative messages, then we're all turned off. And so try to persuade me with what you can do and less of what is wrong with the other. Mm-hmm. I think that discourse has to change.
Mm-hmm. And tell us a little bit, if you will, about the importance of dispute resolution as a general matter in Jamaica. Because, of course, we know we have a tendency as a people not necessarily to talk it out. But usually your first impulse, unfortunately, is violence.
Yes. Well, I respectfully disagree with you that our first instinct is violence, because when we talk about the 2.7 million population, yes, there is violence, there's domestic violence, there are a number of things that go on in Jamaica. But the vast majority of Jamaican citizens, there's a reason we call the happiest country on earth. Most of us would rather laugh, talk, hug, eat, drink, make merry, be happy, go to church, love our families, travel occasion, and so on. That's what we really like to do. And we also tend to over the years, we've had an attitude of respect. That is why on the street, when you see a young man, he says mother, or auntie, or sister, or empress, or these expressions. Because generally speaking, as Jamaicans, we do want to be happy and to respect one another. And so the idea of dispute resolution is really around hesitation, if you will, that the first thought that comes to our mouth is we think it could do harm, that maybe it's worth taking that deep breath and saying, all right, is there another way I could approach this? Or what is my objective? Do I want this person to agree with something I'm saying? Do I want this person to do something? Do I achieve that by abusing them, or do I achieve that by listening to them and taking my opportunity to say? So there are some really modest common sense things, and when those don't work, there are trained professionals and resources out there that people can use. And I really want people to understand that there are many people, school resource officers, there are counselors, there are mediators, there are restorative justice practitioners, there are people working in peace management, dispute resolution, etc., who have the skills to help us in difficult situations. And I want to talk about JPs, because we're encouraging JPs to be that, justices of the peace on the ground, a voice of reason and rationality. Many are trained as mediators or counselors or have some other background that can help us let respect be the driver of our interaction with one another.
Okay. And tell us, as you embark on this role, your immediate priorities. What will those be?
Well, I have tried to set up a number of meetings with the Prime Minister, the Leader of the Opposition, the Electoral Commission, the Commissioner of Police, a number of people who are really critical to the work that I have to do. I have an office that I'm in the office, which is next door to Gordon House. It is actually the JMA building, which is next door to Gordon House, downtown on Duke Street. And so we're working right after nomination day, whenever that is. We will publish the code of conduct so that every Jamaican can read the code of conduct and be guided by it, because it's not only the candidates and their representatives, but every man and every woman who needs to know what the rules of engagement are and to try to see the extent to which they can live by those rules and enforce those rules. So I expect that people will then know the complaints that they can make so we can act expeditiously to nip problems in the bud.
And as the political ombudsman, are you assured and hopeful that there will come a time when we have been so mature as a democracy that perhaps no one will need to occupy this office?
Well, I think it's a bit of a mistake to think it has anything to do with political maturity. I'm not one of those people who consider us politically immature. On the contrary, I consider that Jamaicans are very politically astute.
Yes. And
quite often we don't give them the credit for that. Now, our methodology of expressing political action is like, Jamaica is a dance hall culture. We have big open parties at night at different venues. There are many other countries who don't have that sort of activity. There are many things we do in Jamaica that's part of our culture, that's part of our tradition, that's not necessarily found anywhere else. And I think in the political sphere, it's the same. Now, that does not necessarily mean immaturity. I will say to you that I was doing some research and I realized that the first ombudsman was possibly in China in 210 BC. And in Korea, 300 and something BC. Yes. My research shows that commercial ombudspeople, for example, are on the increase in, say, the USA, where people are taking an option to use professionals who can give them a private, speedy, flexible process. So the court is there. We respect and value the court as a place of last resort. But if you have ombudspeople, then there's more agility in the ombud system that can help people, because in the natural order of life, there are disagreements, there are differences of opinion, there's intended and unintended harm that occurs. And that is where the ombudsperson comes in.
All right.
So
Donna Parchment
it's
Brown,
an ancient
Jamaica's.
practice.
All right. Mrs. Parchment Brown, we want to thank you so much for joining us here on Talk Jamaica. All the best in your new role, ma'am.
Thank you. Congrats on your program, and I'm so happy to be able to talk with your listeners, and I look forward to talking with you again and getting your advice on how to use social media to more effectively discharge my office.
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
All right, listeners, you just heard her there. The first female political ombudsman of Jamaica, Donna Parchment Brown.